Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sherry Mayberry, and we have Beth Smith on the line also, who's going to do the training today. We're going to jump right into the training because we know that this is the middle of the day for you, and you probably have a million things going on, but we do want to thank you for joining us today. If you have questions during the webinar as we get started, up in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you will see like a little question box. You can type your question in that box. We can see it. And if it's one that I can respond while Beth is conducting the training, then I will respond. If it's one that I feel like everybody will benefit, we'll share it with the group. But please don't hesitate to send your questions. We can unmute you. It's better if you're using your phone for audio rather than your computer. But if you do have a question and want to talk, if you just raise your hand, which again, too, is up in the right-hand corner, you'll see the little hand, and you just click on that, and I will see that your hand is raised. We have folks on today from just a little bit of everywhere: Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Washington even. So, again, we want to be respectful of your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Beth, and we're going to get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Whiz. I was reading over the report, and I can tell we have folks on here who are familiar with Whiz and who we are and what we do, and those that are not. So I'm going to kind of try to touch on as many bases as I can for both groups. And like Sherry said, please, if you have a question, use that question box to type it in, because I will not be speaking for the entire time, and we'll stop to take questions, answer questions, anything that I can do to help you better understand who we are and what we do. First of all of you in Pennsylvania and up that way, and in Washington State, I'm sure that you are enjoying a very snowy day in your neck of the woods. It seems like this winter has been crazy, so I'm glad that you could join us. What we're going to do is we're going to go through kind of a little bit of a history of who Whiz is and how we came to be, what our goals are for working with family child care providers, and how we address things like state standards as well. Then we'll look at some of our tools that we have on our website, including our user's guide, our learning environment booklet. We'll look at a lesson plan, talk about why the lesson plans are structured the way they are, and how we are different than maybe other curriculums that you've seen out there. Part of that will come into the introduction here about who we are. Whiz has been around since 2012. We started because we felt there was a desperate need for something for family child care providers out there in the marketplace that addressed all ages, but was not a box of things, paper and paper plates and all that was more aligned with state standards and the goals that you all have for providers to set up a learning environment where children can thrive. And so what we did is we did a test market. We came up with a prototype. We set up a dummy website where we could put it out there as a sample, and we asked providers and people that work with providers to look at us and give us feedback. At the same time, I was looking at all the state standards and the Head Start standards and aligning what we were going to be doing with those. So when you talk about Whiz, we have alignment charts for the different states of how we align. But we also, in addition to that, have how we align to Head Start. And I'm going to show you where that is. So let me scroll down because I know that's important to a lot of you. And we do have some states we just haven't gotten around to doing yet, but most of them at this point are done. So down here we have a United States map, and you can just simply choose your state from the list and click on it. And I'm going to, I know Sherry said we had people from, for instance, Florida. So I'm going to just pull Florida since that one's there. Okay, come on. My computer's acting weird. Well, I don't know why that's not working, Sherry. Maybe they're doing something with the website. Let me try a different one. Let me try Connecticut.
If you have a block on your computer, sometimes you'll have to go up to the browser bar and click on it, and it'll have a block. But
well, I don't know what's going on with I've never done that with my computer before, but anyway, normally you would just click on this and it would open right up to the standards. So I'm not going to go there right now because I want to keep on moving. They're PDF files, and they're basically charts that show how we align. I'll have to look at that at a later point in time. But
well,
anyway.
And just a point real quick, if you click on it and it doesn't come up, if you go up to your browser bar and click there, you will see it there and pop there and unblock, and it should pop right
up. Where, so, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's done. Let me go back and try that again. That has never happened to me before, but maybe there was an update to my browser. So let me go down here and try this one more time. I apologize, just so I could show you. I'll choose, let's see, I'll choose there we go. This is actually the alignment to the DRDP, which is an assessment tool they use in California, but it would be similar. It would have your state standard over here and then how we align over there. So anyway, thank you, Sherry, for helping me fix that. I'm not sure why that happened. So we do align to state standards. We looked at all the different state standards, like I said, and the early Head Start standards, and we align to those. And I'll show you how we connect those dots as we look at the lesson plans. We decided to use a digital model for this because of a couple reasons. First and foremost, it was less expensive for us to do this than it would be if, say, we were printing something and shipping it to the customer. We knew that put us well ahead of the curve in technology with some of these providers, and we are still ahead of the curve with some of the providers. But we tried to make it very simple to do. We have a guide that walks them through with screenshots, step by step by step. How do you log in to get to the curriculum? And the beauty of it is, because it is digital, we have customers like with the lesson plans, for instance. They don't print them out. They might just keep them stored on their computer and view them on their computer or even a tablet. The family letters are PDFs, so they can save the PDF to their computer and then they can email that to a parent, so they don't have to print it out. So it gives them a lot more flexibility. It also is less expensive for them by far than if we were printing and shipping something. But probably the biggest difference from anything you've seen so far, for the most part out there, is that when we created GWiz, the one thing we wanted to do was address all ages. So in the curriculum, we address everything from an infant to a school ager, and I'll show you how we do that in the lesson plans. We have a lot of tools on our website. I'm not signed in as a customer right now. I will be doing that so you can see how that works, but right now I'm not signed in. So everything that I can access right now currently on my website under these tabs up here is available to anyone, whether they're a customer or not. Okay, so you don't have to be a customer, for instance, to get to our tools for providers or our seasonal and holiday activities or our social, emotional, character development materials. Everything under that tab for providers is available to them, whether they're a customer or not, and available to you to utilize with providers. So, for instance, under our health, safety, and nutrition tab, there's a toothbrushing chart. This is Dental Health Month. If you wanted to share that with your providers, you're absolutely welcome to do so. We also have developmental checklists, which are from the CDC. These can be used with parents if they just want to give the parent an idea of where their child is. And before it comes up, I'm going to answer the question about assessment. GWiz does not have a formal assessment tool with it, but that is by design. When we created GWiz, I looked at things like Teaching Strategies Gold, Ages and Stages, the ounce scale, a lot of the ones that are commonly utilized by providers. And because we were hitting on all the developmental areas for these ages in the curriculum, we felt strongly that it wouldn't matter which assessment tool providers used, that the children should do quite well because we're covering all the developmental areas in many, many different ways. And from the quality specialists that we've talked to that work with providers that have been using this, that's exactly what they say. We felt that it was very important for a provider to choose an assessment tool that they felt they could utilize in a way that would work for them and for their children, and it was not worth the time and expense that we would have to go to create a formal, basically recreate the wheel. And so that's why we don't have one that's a GWiz one, but they can really pick whatever one they want. And that question comes up all the time, so I just wanted to cover it now. So where I'm going to go now is under our product. GWiz has a catalog we do everything digital. Instead of shipping a catalog or mailing a catalog, we have one online. But where I want to go right now is this user's guide. This is like our training manual. And when I do training for providers, we spend a lot of time in this booklet. Again, it's a PDF file, so providers can choose to print it out and put it in a binder and put it on the shelf like you would any other book, or they can just store it on their computer as a file that they can open when they want to or when they need it. I'm not going to go through here page by page like I would if I was doing this training with providers, because a lot of this content in here is going to be very familiar to you, but I want you to know what's in here and what we do cover when we do our webinar training on this for providers. There's a table of contents right here that will show what is in here. The first section talks about the role, and a big part of that role, we believe, is things like modeling language and questioning techniques, what are teachable moments, and then how the provider can, on a self basis, evaluate how things are going on an ongoing way. The second part of that is about individualization, what we call authentic assessment. So in the curriculum, we have tools to help providers individualize it. We also have tools to help them learn what an anecdotal note is, what a reflection on an anecdotal note is, how you plan activities based on those anecdotal notes, and then how you incorporate that into your lesson plans. This entire section right here covers all of that. And there are blank individualization webs and what we call the observe and reflect grids, and I can show you what those look like, that can be printed out by anyone who would like to use them. So let me go down through here a little bit and just get to that section. This is actually a topic that we are considering doing a webinar on, is training on anecdotal notes and reflections, because we know it is one that is very challenging and yet so important. So this section talks a little bit about how you can individualize the curriculum. We view it as a 5-step approach, where they observe, they reflect upon what they've observed, they plan activities based on that, they do the activities, they reflect on how that went, and then they do it all over again. And the next couple pages basically just explain each one of those steps. And again, this document that I'm in right now is available to everyone, regardless of whether you're a customer or not. This page explains what an anecdotal note is. When I do training, I say it's like if you're a video camera and you're recording. You're not going to put what you think you're seeing happening there. It's truly going to be what you see, what you hear, what is said. As I say, just the facts, ma'am, only the facts. And then it walks through, it gives an example of what an anecdotal note might look like, and then we go on to a reflection. And how a reflection is that, okay, you look at your anecdotal note and you think about, okay, what did I learn from this? What do I think is going on here? And then you plan activities based on that. So this section walks them through that. And then here are the two, what I was talking about, the blank ones, the observe and reflect grid and the individualization web. And this talks about putting it all together, and I'm just going to scroll to the actual pages. So here's the observe and reflect grid. So again, if a provider was going to be utilizing this, they could just go to this page, print out as many copies of this one page as they needed, and utilize that for their anecdotal notes and reflections. We also have a completed one to give them an idea what it looks like when it's done. And then our individualization web, here's a blank one of those. This tool can be utilized in many different ways. It can be utilized to tie a child's interests into a current unit that we're doing. It can also be utilized to address a special need. So if you have a child with autism, a child with ADHD, a child with limited motor skills, you could use this to individualize that particular unit for that child and then fill out one of these for them. We give them one of these individualization webs in each unit that's customized to the unit, but this is, again, available to everybody. And here's one that's been completed to give them an idea. So this is just a really important section within this guide that I wanted to show you because, again, it is something that is very important and something that we work hard to get the providers to do. And it is very time-consuming, but it's so important that they do it. We also, in the lesson plans, will suggest times when it's a good idea to either maybe take a photo or a video or gather a work sample to put in a portfolio if they're doing portfolios. Then this section just talks about the 10 developmental areas that are addressed in the GWIZ curriculum. All 10 are in the curriculum, and they're in this circle right here. And this section walks the providers through, and I'll show you one page. We're not going to go through all of this. What is language development, and what does it look like? And you see these little symbols. We use symbols in our lesson plans to help providers connect activities to developmental areas. And then we go a step further than that in the back of the teacher's guide, where we actually have a chart that connects not only the developmental area, but the specific skill, such as would be on the alignment chart, to that activity. And I'm going to show you that when we go into the lesson plans. So this section of the user's guide has a page for every area of development. So there's a page for language development, literacy development, physical development, and health. Same format where it walks them through what it is and what it looks like. And then in the rest of this guide, you're going to find the philosophy and the research studies upon which this is based. We get asked all the time, have we done any research, as in how does this work, and gathering data? And we have a lot of anecdotal data, but we haven't done a formal study yet. I'm actually in talks with UW right now about what will suffice as that type of data, because we have providers and some quality specialists in, I think it's Ohio, that would be willing to do that for us, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. But we do have a lot of anecdotal evidence from specialists in Pennsylvania, specialists in Ohio, that are telling us that not only do providers really love this, they actually are using it. And that is their goal, especially in states like Pennsylvania, where they've gone to a system where they have to, at the minimum, get 1 star. They need to participate in the STAR system. They're finding that this is a way providers can actually implement successfully. And so we've been hearing that, and I know we have people from Pennsylvania on this webinar. I don't know if any of you are the ones that have told us that, but we have heard that. And then the rest of this goes through just the different components, what they are, how they're meant to be used. So again, I don't want to spend more time in here because we have a lot to cover, but just know that if you would like to read this in depth, it's under the Our Products tab and then the User's Guide. I'm going to take just a second right now to see if there are any questions I can answer, and then I want to go into our Learning Environment book.
Again, just type your questions. There was a comment, I think, that that would be a very helpful webinar if we did something around reflecting and planning the activities, which I would appreciate that suggestion. But type your question in if you have any so we can share them. But if there are no hands raised, I think we can keep going, Beth.
All right, I'm going to go under Our Products and come down to the Learning Environment. This is actually a new booklet that we just added in December at the request of a provider, believe it or not, in New York City. And she also suggested this new component that we added called our Add and Enhance Grid, and I'll explain what that is in a second. But this booklet, we know that many states utilize either the class or the Fickers, and we know that the learning environment is extremely important. So this booklet is to help providers better understand what a learning environment is and why their role in that learning environment is so important. Because it's not just a matter of planning the activities, it's a matter of engaging with the children. And so this booklet talks about, what we consider the 5 aspects of the learning environment, which are self, materials, interactions, the actual learning, and the engagement. And this booklet breaks down each one of those areas, focusing a lot on the provider and how important their role is. Even something as simple as being positive, or thinking before you speak, and your nonverbal communication. It's just a reminder that little people are watching all the time, and they pick up on the least little thing, and how important it is for you to be enthusiastic, that's contagious. The second part is the materials, and that's where our new component, the Add and Enhance, comes in, and I'll show you what that is. But these are some ideas of things if they're setting up centers or they want to gather materials for areas that they could utilize in their different areas. So this just walks them through some basic things, and the Add and Enhance gets more in line with whatever units we're doing. Interactions. This is a big part of GWIZ, and I'll show you how we do this in the lesson plans, but the fact that you need to be interacting with the children, and that interaction can be a nonverbal interaction or it can be a verbal interaction, and that's where listening becomes in to play, as well as being proactive and not reactive. And that also flows into parents as well. Learning every day. So important. Everything they do every day, all day long, diapering, hand washing, routine times, eating can all be learning times, and this talks about that, how you can make every part of your day a learning part of your day. Transitions, outside play, inside play, and engagement. First one of these I constantly am reminding my 17-year-old to do is put down the cell phone. Technology is a great thing, but it can also be a trap. And so in here it talks even about like with parents or caregivers that might constantly be texting, what are you doing today, or how's it going today, or da-da-da-da-da, that, you have to set down those rules ahead of time and say, look, I'm going to be with the children. I'm going to be engaging with the children. I want to be really in there with them. So, of course, if there's an emergency, call me, but otherwise I'll be checking my phone at these times and responding at these times. And then when you're talking about interacting with the children, asking those open-ended questions, we build that into the curriculum, keeping learning styles in mind. All children do not learn the same way, and letting the children lead. And then just a positive statement from us that, they can do this. Because let's face it, they have a really challenging job. They wear many different hats. Their days are packed from morning until night. And for most of them, they have no one to help them. So their jobs are so challenging and yet so important. Again, this booklet is available on our page, and I'm not sure why that did. I don't know why this does this, Sherry. We need to ask our webmaster. When you get to the bottom, it blocks it out. So I'm going to scroll back up and go home. Anyway, so that's under our products and the learning environment. Okay. Now I want to take you into our sample lesson plan. There are 2 units in each month. They're each 10 days long. They do not have dates, so they can be utilized really whenever the provider wants to utilize them. There's usually more than enough planned in each day that you could extend it for more than one day, and we encourage them to do that, actually, if the children are engaged and excited about an activity. But what I'm going to do through is I'm going to use a sample plan here to kind of walk you through, because it has the call-outs, the different parts and pieces, and then we'll actually log in and I'll show you where the curriculum lives. So this was a unit we did called Boxes, Blankets, and Balls. And you'll notice these picture codes. Remember I mentioned these earlier, how each area of development has a picture code? Well, in the top green box, if they do all of the activities that we have planned for the day, they will cover all of these developmental areas. And in this case, that's social and emotional, language, physical development and health, approaches to learning, creative arts, science knowledge, music, literacy, social studies, math knowledge, and logic and reasoning. Okay? Then in this box, we always have a health and safety tip every day. We have a teaching tip every day, and we have a transition idea every day. This symbol with the CE in the center indicates that in this case, our teaching tip has to do with character education. So if they see this symbol anywhere in the lesson plans, they know they're addressing character education. And the 4 traits we focus on are kindness, responsibility, respect, and honesty. Okay? And then over here in the blue box, we have our modeling language box. We have vocabulary, and this is vocabulary that we want the provider to utilize in conversations with children. The more they hear the words in context, the more they will begin to understand what they mean, even if they're nonverbal. And then this continues on to give them some ideas for the different activities on the next page, how they can continue to model language. We really believe that that's super important. Then here's our Exploring Together activity. We used to call this circle time, but because the children and the provider are actually exploring together, and it's not a time when the provider is just talking and the children are just listening and they're actually engaging and doing things, we decided we needed a better term, so Exploring Together is what we came up with. Again, you're going to see a list of symbols. So for this one activity, you would address language, social and emotional literacy, science, logic and reasoning, physical development and health, music, creative arts, social studies, and approaches to learning for this one experience. The sunshine means it can be done outside if you so chose. The get moving means the children are going to be building gross motor skills because we're going to be up and doing something. The first bullet point of all GWIZ experiences has the why behind it, because we believe one of our main goals in this curriculum is using the picture codes and this first bullet, helping providers connect the dots between, why am I doing this activity? What are the children going to accomplish? What are my goals? What areas of development am I going to develop? So the first bullet point kind of gives them some of that. I can't go into great detail about everything that it's going to do, but I try to hit on the highlights. And then it just walks them through how to actually do the experience with the children. And then over here, we have those open-ended questions. Like, how long do you think it would take how long do you think it would take to mail a package to, and the children could suggest a place like China, or it could be someplace just down the street. And obviously, they're going to hypothesize there. Who would you mail the package to? What would you send to them? Open-ended questions that really get the conversation going. And obviously, you're going to have in a family child care, more than likely, children who are verbal, children who are nonverbal, but those nonverbal children will hear that conversation and they will build skills by listening. And so we encourage them to incorporate as many children who are interested in the Exploring Together experience. Then the day continues on the second page, and we have 2 small group experiences. In this case, these are child-directed activities where you're just going to set up the environment and they can take it in any way they really want to. One is a packing and shipping station, and the other is banging on boxes. You'll notice on packing and shipping that we leveled it. And it talks about developmental levels here, because different developmental levels will approach this experience differently. We are providing options. For sake of ease, I use toddlers, 2s, young 3s. I sometimes will say toddlers, 2s, 3s, sometimes just toddlers, 2s. And I stress when I do my training with the provider that is not a chronological age, but a developmental age. So what I encourage them to do is read both options and think about each child in their group, which option would work best for each child. But this way they can do one experience, packing and shipping, but just twist it up in different ways for different developmental levels. And then like banging on boxes, we don't need levels for this one. The children are naturally going to take it in a direction that's appropriate for them depending on where they are. And then in purple down here, we have our infant experience. We decided that we needed an infant activity every day. Does this mean this is just for infants? No. I guarantee if you start doing this rhyme, you're going to have toddlers and 2s and 3s and 4s all join in, and that's fine. But we wanted to have things that just infants can do. So we have tummy time activities. We have diapering activities. We have all kinds of things in here for babies. So this just gives you an idea of the layout of the lesson plans, and this was just one day. So I just want to take a second before I go into the actual curriculum and show you where all the components and everything live to see if you have any questions about the lesson plans.
Don't have anyone typing any. If we finish the webinar and you pull down some of the information and have questions later, please don't hesitate to send us some emails and we'll try to help you answer those questions in any way. But I think we can keep going.
Okay. All right. Great. So again, all the things that I've touched on so far are under the Our Products tab, available to everybody. There's also a support tab that has frequently asked questions. When we do our webinar for providers, we're getting ready to do one next week on the 21st. We will record that and put that training webinar on GWIZ for providers under this tab so they can come and they can listen to it and they can, watch the recording of the webinar. So that's always there. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here and click on sign in and show you if you were a customer or if a provider was a customer, what they would do. So give me 1 second here. So hopefully I will not type this wrong.
Beth, while you bring that up, there was one question that just came in. What languages are the lesson plans in? Right now, and when she gets into the customer section, right now our teacher guide is just in English. We do have some Spanish components, which Beth will show you. We have not been able to conquer getting the teacher guide translated, as you saw the format with Beth. It's not just a straight up document that just, we can translate. So we're working on that, but that's where we are right now.
Yes, we're still struggling to find a way to translate that into Spanish that would be easy, and we have yet to do that. So I signed in, and now this magical tab, GWE Customers, has appeared. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here to this month's units and click. And currently we have Fabric Fun, which is the first unit for February, and Around Town, which is the second unit for February. And down here below, very shortly here, in another week or so, the first unit March will go up, and then shortly thereafter, the second unit for March will go up. People ask all the time, well, I want to go back and get a unit, or I want to do this, or why can't you keep them all up at the same time and I can pick and choose? Simple answer to that is these files are huge, particularly the teaching guide files, because of the graphics. And if we kept all the files since 2012 on our website available, our website would be, actually the website would probably crash. So what we do is we put the documents up, and they stay up for 45 days. So for instance, Fabric Fun, this unit right here, went up on January the 20th or around January 20th, and it will stay up until the early part of March before we take it down. So when I do training for providers, I will go through what we just did. I just logged in using my username and my password, and I will show them, okay, this is what you're going to do to download the files. You're going to want to save them to your computer. I suggest putting them in a folder labeled, for instance, Fabric Fun, and just put all the files in that one folder so they know where it is. And then they can also, if they're technologically savvy enough, the best place to save them as a backup would be on Google Drive, if they use Google Drive or the cloud. Obviously, a flash drive would work, an external hard drive would work, and we know that we have providers that are like, what the heck is an external hard drive? But we find that they figure it out, and we're here to help too. That's just so they have a backup. It's not to say, like, let's say we're in the month of February and somebody's computer crashes and they lose all their files, we won't send them. Obviously, if they're a paying customer and they're up to date on their payments, we will send them the current month if they lose it, but it's just to protect themselves. So I'm going to click on here to go into the English files. And you'll notice there's a description of the unit, and then we have all the different components. So in this unit, we have the teacher's guide, we have story props, we have a materials list, the add and enhance, the individualization web, family letter, all about my week, digital family note 1 and 2, make it 1 and 2. Okay? So to download these, it's actually quite simple. We'll start with the teacher's guide. Obviously, you would click download. Now, if they want to print it, besides saving it, I go over this. You go up here. This is where on my computer, I'm on a PC. If you're on a Mac, it might be different. I would simply click the download button and save it to my computer. If I wanted to print it, I would print it here. We talk about how you can save money. So you can print it in black and white. You can not print it at all and just view it on your computer. If you have a two-sided printer, you can print it two-sided, and I always encourage, no matter what you're printing it in, to use draft mode, which is what I do all the time to save ink. Each one is about 35 pages. This one's 33 pages long. It just depends on the unit. And that is why when Sherry was mentioning the translation situation, it's very challenging. This is created in something called Publisher, which is not like a Word document that you can just translate a whole document at the push of a button. You actually have to go in and translate each section at a time. So we're still trying to figure out, okay, how do we do that? Because we've had a lot of requests for Spanish translation, obviously. The teaching guide starts out with a little bit of an introduction. Anything that they would want to remind parents of or they would need to collect ahead of time is in a yellow box at the top. In addition to, I'll show you the materials list. It has a reminder for everyone about what all these symbols mean. So if they forget what the heart means or if they forget what the question mark means, all they need to do is go to the beginning of their teacher's guide. They can go to the user's guide. Even our catalog has that information. Same thing with these three across the bottom. And then this chart has all the activities or experiences that we have planned for this unit. And a lot of providers will print this one page and display it for parents so they can kind of see what's coming up. The school age activities are listed at the bottom. And then just like we looked at in the sample, it goes right into the day one and you have your exploring together activity, you have your questions to ask, you go on to the next page and you have your small group experiences, more questions to ask, and your infant experience. And the teacher's guide goes on like this for the 10 days. So there's 10 days of activities in the teacher's guide, and then after those 10 days, if I can get my computer to go really fast here and not too fast, I apologize for making you dizzy. I want to show you where the school age experiences are. When we created GWIZ, we did a survey, and that was one thing that people begged and pleaded for was school age experiences. So we do have school age activities in the curriculum, and they start after day 10. And each one of these can be utilized and done for more than one day. Because they're older children, they're able to start an activity and continue it for more than one day. There are a wide variety of experiences in here. Games, active games, especially like they've been sitting all day at school. They don't get nearly enough recess, in my opinion, so we get them moving. Science, that's always a lot of fun to do. But again, there's 6 activities in the back here just for school agers. Now, if you had or a provider had some advanced preschoolers, there's nothing to say that they couldn't do some of these experiences. If there's a caution about something that we're going to use that, obviously you need to keep it away from little ones, it'll tell them that. But we did include that there. And then the first unit of each month has a story that goes with it, an original story and props. And this one's called Getting Dressed. And this is the text for the story. The actual props are in a different file where they would print them out and put them together. And then we have directions for the Make It sheets. I'll explain what they are when we get there. Experiences for advanced preschoolers. These are children who are getting ready to go to kindergarten, who might be ready to do more with letters, letter sounds, letter recognition, writing, creative writing, and also some more advanced math concepts. And then here's that chart I was mentioning. So we have the picture codes in the lesson plans. But then, as you remember when I was talking about that, in the user's guide, we have these things called learning indicators, and they're also on the alignment charts. So this chart takes it a step further. So if you want to know what indicators or what skills an activity has addressed, here's where you would look. And then in our user's guide, there are 2 pages that explain what LD1, LD2, LD3, and LD4 mean. So this is a way for a provider to say, okay, today I did this activity wearing fabric, so I addressed these skills. And she could go back to her user's guide and see what those specific skills were if she wanted to know that. It continues on to the second page here for the school age activities because they just did not fit on the chart. We give them a book list so they can go to the library and get books. We have original songs, poems. This one we did Diddle Diddle Dumpling. That's not original, obviously, but Put Your Towel on Your Blank is. And then this was a pattern for the school agers to use to make a change purse. They were going to do some sewing. I often put goodies in the back, I call them goodies, of the teaching guide. If there's something that I can give providers that I think would be helpful. For instance, I know we were doing something in our farm unit one time with lost sheep because we were doing Little Bo Peep. So I gave them like 10 sheep that they could cut apart, glue to, or tape to blocks, and then they were going to hide them, find them, count them, sort them. I don't remember what all they were going to do with them. But again, anything that I can put back here as a printable that would make their life a little bit easier and is one less thing they need to make to do an activity or create something, I will put it back here. Again, this is just one unit, so this is the teaching guide that goes with the first unit for February. Here are the story props. That was the Getting Dressed. In this case, it's a bear, so they're going to prepare the bear, and then they would cut out the clothes and put the clothes on the bear in the story as they tell the story. And then
this is a really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I want to interrupt for just a minute. There's a question which I posted for everyone to see. The question is, curious to know the benefits of the GWIZ compared to the free state curriculum providers receive in Ohio, and most times it's Creative Curriculum and TS Gold. If I'm not mistaken, in Ohio, that is the free curriculum. I'm not sure that the others would be free. But what we hear with trainers is that it's much easier for them to create their lesson plans and follow their lesson plans because it is it's just a little bit laid out for them in a format that it's easy for them to address the needs of the individual children, and especially since the fact that we address the mixed age group. Beth, I don't know if you have any more comments around that.
The one that I've heard most frequently is they'll actually use it. And I haven't actually looked at teaching strategies in a very, very long time, so I'm not at all well versed enough to talk about how it's used or what's included in it. I will just tell you that in a conversation I had most recently with a quality specialist in Pennsylvania, where they don't have a free curriculum option, their comment was that this was the first curriculum that they've actually seen providers utilize, but not just utilize, they were excited about using it, and they were excited because it was tailored to them. Like, it wasn't like they were trying to take a curriculum that was meant for a center and make it work for a family child care. And we're very cognizant of the fact that they're in their home. So when I write the experiences, I use things they're going to have on hand, like a plastic bowl from the kitchen or a wooden spoon or, an empty box that's in the recycling bin. I mean, they don't have time to go out and buy or find a lot of things. So as much as I can, I use things that they're going to have on hand. And I think those things, the biggest one being that they actually use it, is what I've heard. And so that makes us feel good because that was our ultimate goal, was to create something that they would find easy to use and that would actually be not just, we have a lady in Florida and she takes this and she runs wild with it. I mean, she'll take these story props, for instance, with the bear and the clothes, and she'll turn that into a book as well as a story prop. And that's the beauty of it being printable. They can really take these materials and use them in any way they want. For instance, that bear, they could make a second bear and they could put it in a learning center, or they could put flannel on the back and flannel on the back of the pieces, or Velcro, and they could Velcro them on and off. I mean, there's so many things you could do with that. And I think that that's where, at least the question that, from what I've heard in talking with specialists, that's the benefits that I've heard. And it's always hard to turn something down that's free,
That and they meet the requirements for the lesson plans each day, or when someone comes in to look at what you're doing and monitor what they're doing, it's easy for them to identify for the trainer, this is what I'm doing. It's easier for them to address that.
Right, and not in Ohio, this isn't a factor, but in every other state it is a factor. It's the cost. So this is $18.95 a month, all right, and our training is free. We do these webinars all the time. We record them, so providers have access, if they're a customer of GWIZ, to free training. And I know that with teaching strategies, if you need to be trained in it, that's quite a considerable expense. So I don't know how Ohio handles that part of it, but for the other states, that's a big benefit as well as the price. It's not astronomical and something that they can easily fit into their budgets. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks. I just want to stop you right there and get that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is a materials list, and this was another example of when we listened to our customers. A customer said, hey, I would love to have a materials list so I would be able to know at a glance what I'm going to need every day to do the experiences. I don't have time to go through everything. So I said, sure, we can do that. So we added it. That's, again, another benefit of being digital. So everything on here that's in red just means they might need a little bit of extra time to gather it or find it. And then on the back side of here, we have the school age experiences. And then in yellow, anything they should start collecting and anything they need to let parents know. Like in this case, they're going to dress them in polka dots, plaids, or stripes for a day we're having related to those things. So again, we listen to our customers. If they say, wow, I could really use this, or wow, that would really make things better, if it's something we can do, we will do it. And that also comes up into play with specialists as well, like yourselves and trainers. If there's something that you feel like would make this better, we will certainly look into adding it. That's kind of why we're still struggling to find a Spanish translation for this. And then the add and enhance was another component that goes along with the environment. These are specific things they can, if they have centers, or if they use those tubs where they have things that they put in and take out for the units that they're doing, these are things that would enhance this unit of Fabric Fun. And then our second unit for February is actually on the back side, which is around town. So these things are things they can add to enhance the unit. Our individualization web, we saw that. It's just tailored to the actual unit. Our family letter, and this is available in Spanish, is just an overview of what the unit's going to be about, but it also includes things that parents or caregivers can do during bath time, mealtime, bedtime, and when riding in the car. We include a rhyme or a song. On the Spanish version of that, I usually do something else that I can translate that obviously doesn't have a rhyming pattern. So this is, again, a PDF file, so they can simply save this and then email it to the parents if they don't want to print it out. And then we get down to our All About My Week. This is also available in Spanish. One of these is designed to go home at the end of each week, and it's just a way for the provider to communicate with the parents about their child. This week, the child enjoyed most was, the area they spent the most time was, I'm trying very hard to learn how to, and I'm getting very good at. I encourage providers as they complete this form to make a copy before they give it to the parent and put it in their portfolio. And that way, if they do this every week, they're going to have a great running record of kind of where the child was when they were, especially for family child care, when they were maybe a toddler, all the way up until when they're 4 or 5 years old. Then our digital family notes, you can think about this sort of kind of as a picture file. It's a JPEG. So it can be saved in your picture roll or your picture folder, and it can actually be texted to a parent. If you want to save it on your phone, you could actually save it in your picture roll and then send it as a text message. These are just, again, very simple things that they can do at home to reinforce the unit with their child. And then our Make It sheets are totally optional. We do not have printables or coloring sheets or worksheets written into this curriculum in any way, shape, or form. We have 2 for each unit, but they're totally optional, and they tend to be very open-ended. So in this case, it's a closet because we're talking about fabric. And the children can do it in many ways. They could draw pictures of clothes they have or would like to have. They could cut or tear from magazines clothing that they would like to have. Obviously, this would be for a child that's ready to do that kind of thing. A child that's writing or beginning to talk about letters and sounds could then dictate about what they would put in their closet. And then the second one for this was about patterns, because clothes come in polka dots and stripes and all kinds of patterns. So this is actually a patterning game. So it would be for children who are ready to practice patterning, practice either copying a pattern, extending a pattern, or creating patterns. These are the strips for the patterns, and these are the cards. And this is an example of when I was talking about utilizing things in many different ways. If you didn't want to use this as a per child thing, you could certainly use this to create a center material, and they could utilize it as a manipulative. They vary what these Make It sheets are. We sometimes will do a little book. We've done picture recipes before. I know we did a bubble solution picture recipe one time with the idea that then it was nothing more than something to print out, send home, and the parents could create the bubble solution with the child. But this is just one unit, and the difference with the second unit is instead of a story prop, they get a teaching tool, which would be something like the pattern strips and card or a lotto game or something like that. And then they also get a printable puppet, which can, like, it might go on a paper bag, it might go on a paper plate, it might just be a folded puppet, but it's somebody who is related to whatever the topic is. And so I'm going to go back one second. And if you needed the Spanish files for this unit, you would just click here. And then all the Spanish files for the family letter, digital family notes, all about my week can be found there. So I'm going to stop right there for 1 second and see if anybody has any questions about the actual curriculum, how they get to the curriculum, where you find the curriculum, anything I can answer regarding that.
Okay. There was one question I think I answered, just how do you get the training to providers that speak languages other than Spanish or English? We have done a couple of webinars where, like if you at CCR&R brought the providers to a location and that CCR&R lead person was the facilitator and translated. The issue with that is that our programs are still in English, so even if we translate what's happening, the material's all in English. their feeling was that some of their assistants may be able to speak or read the English section and translate, but that was just right now. Our teacher guide is just in English. I don't see any more questions though right now, Beth.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I want to go back out to the home page and just show how customers would become GWhiz customers. So I'm actually signed in, so I can't go through this process because it won't let me. We do have a free 10-day sample unit. The sample unit we're currently offering is called Taking Care of Me. It's all about health and nutrition and safety, and all the components they need to utilize it for 10 days are right here. You don't need to sign in. You don't need to sign up. You just literally come to this page, and you then download each of the components, and they can try it and see how it works for them, because we really do want them to be happy, and we know that one size does not fit all. So that's a great way for them to try it. We also do offer a free 30-day money-back guarantee. So let's say someone signs up, they get 2 weeks, and they're like, oh, my gosh, this is never going to work for me. All they need to do is email us and let us know, and we'll just give them their money back. We also have a video gallery with some other videos that you might find helpful. And then here's where they would subscribe. So they can choose to subscribe monthly, quarterly, or yearly. It's a subscription just like you would a magazine or a newspaper. And their credit card will be charged either on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, or a yearly basis. When we do our webinars for providers, those are usually opened up to not just our customers, but people who are interested in learning more about the curriculum. And we will often give a discount code at the end of that webinar. We will be doing that next week, and it's $10 off their first month, first quarter, or first year. So that means their first month would be $8.95. So that makes it super, super inexpensive to give it a try. Here's again where you would find the alignments. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, if you give us your email, and I promise we're lucky if we get one email out a week, if that, we will keep you on our mailing list, and that way you would be notified of the next webinar for trainers. You would be notified when we post, like we just posted a bunch of materials for Valentine's Day that are free to all providers. I'll show you where that is. If we have a new blog topic coming out, anything like that would be there. So speaking of that, I want to take you up here. So under FCC tools, like I mentioned, everything available is something you're welcome to share with providers. So like I said, we just literally posted our Valentine's Day booklet. So all you would do is go here, and it has a bunch of, there's a lotto game, and find the hidden hearts. There's a whole bunch of materials in here, and again, you're welcome to share this with providers. It's our way of supporting you as you support them, and same thing with all the tools under here. Like I mentioned before, there's a bunch of things for health. There's a diapering step display. There's a no smoking sign, because we know in some states they're required to post that. There's a sample daily schedule, I believe, under tools for providers. That was something that that was requested that we do, so we created it, and I believe there's a weather chart too right here. So there's a sample, but within this document, after the sample that's filled out, there's a blank one so they can create their own. And again, all these things are available under the FCC Tools tab right here. If they need to contact us, or if you would like to contact us, the easiest way is going to be through this Contact Us form. We check email all the time at crazy times, so that's the easiest and best way to get a hold of us. And the more information you put in this how can we assist you box, the better. With that being said, before we end this webinar, when we do end the webinar, you're going to see at the very end 2 questions. Wait, I take that back. Sherry, we changed this, so you'll have to explain where this is going to be. But let me explain why we're doing this. We are working with Pennsylvania to get in their registry, which is actually part of the National Workforce Registry for our training for providers. And so we're working to test different ways to include an assessment tool for us on our end after providers either listen to the recorded webinar or attend a live webinar. So you're kind of our guinea pigs. we have 2 questions. It won't take you long to answer, but if you could answer them, it will help us out because we'll know where those responses go, and we'll see if we can connect them back to you personally. Sherry, I think I'll let you explain now where they will see this link to the survey or to the questions.
As soon as we end the webinar, you will receive a survey. It's 2 questions. You will also get a email thanking you for coming in at a couple of hours, and it will have a link to the same question, but that will go through Google Docs. That is the survey form. So we've got surveys using Citrix and survey using Google Docs just to see kind of how it works. So it's the same thing. It's just we want to see if you get that, and you don't have to do both. We're testing it, and we've signed on ourselves, so we'll kind of see how it works. I do want to point out that you see the handout 1, which is a flyer. If you want to download that, it has a link in the flyer for the webinar we have planned for next Thursday night, February the 21st at 7:30, which is open to all providers. It is free. Starts at 7:30. And so we've already got quite a few signed up, and we can only take so many. So if you've got any providers that you think might be interested in just becoming familiar with the program, please share that link with them so that they could sign up. Also, just know that we are recording this webinar. If you'd like to come back and listen again, you can just use the same link that you signed in today, and it will take you to the recording, or you can share that link with anyone else that you would like to, that if you think they're interested in reviewing the recording. There is one third question I just remembered we added. If you want a certificate, just saying that you did attend this webinar today, there's just a question on that survey that says put in your first name, last name, exactly how you would want it. So that will be in that Google Docs for you to fill out. So anyway, would be glad to provide you. If you don't get that, just shoot us an email and we'll get it for you. So
does anyone have any additional questions that I can answer? Because I know we're getting close to an hour, and we try to keep this in an hour because we know you're very busy.
Okay. I don't see any more. Again, when we finish, please don't hesitate to send us questions. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to just work, to come and work with us and listen to our training. There is one question on that just came up. Is it possible to become a trainer? And I think we may need to address that individually with you, because it probably has a lot to do with what state you're in, because each state is a little bit different. So maybe we can reach out through your email and speak with you further about that.
Yeah,
we
just
do
send
have
us a note through, for that person, Sherry, just, I think probably the best way, just send a message to contact us, and then Sherry and I check that email, so we'll respond directly to you. That's the best way to reach us.
And if you work with a lot of providers and when you would like your own account because your providers are using it and you just want to follow back, we'll be glad to set that up for you. But just we ask that you make that request, and we'll get it all set up for you so you can access the material, and you will be familiar, and you will see what the provider is seeing. Okay, I think that we are right at 1 hour. Again, thank you. This is being recorded, and hopefully take 2 seconds and fill out those 2 questions. And we want to say thanks for coming, and we're going to end this session now.
Yes, and if you want that PDF of the flyer about the webinar, it's called Getting the Most Out of GWhiz. That's in that box right now to your right. You'll want to click on that and save it to your computer before we end the webinar, because otherwise it's going to disappear on you. So I'll give you like 30 seconds to click on it. And then even after that, if you still need it, if you didn't get it, just shoot us an email and contact us, and we'll get it to you. But the flyer is a PDF that you can email to providers. You could post on your website. You can share via Facebook or whatever you wanted to do. It has the link for them to register, and it is free. There is absolutely no charge.
Yep. All right. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and we will say adieu. So thank you.
Bye. Thank everyone. Bye-bye.